Hello and welcome to Happy Cells and Souls. I am Julie Powers and I'm a licensed Zumba instructor and I'm a partner with the Juice Plus company. And my missions in life are to help people understand that life is better when they're dancing through it, and I want to inspire healthy living around the world. But my expanded mission is to create better health at the cellular level and more joy at the cellular level. Because I really believe that we only get one body while we're here and we have to take care of it, but we're also supposed to be happy and joyful while we're here on this earth. And so let's figure out how to do that. All right. In my life, I have been very, very honored and privileged to meet some really amazing people. And that is what Happy Cells and Souls is all about, is to create this forum for conversations with people who have things to share that maybe you and I can learn from. And I believe that every single person has a story to share, and we can learn from everyone, even if we come from different backgrounds, political views, religious views. It doesn't matter. If we open our minds and open our hearts, we can learn something from each person. And so today, I am so happy to be talking with G Brown, and that's G as in the letter G Brown, for those of you who have not heard of this nickname before. And I met G on the back porch of an Airbnb in Fort Collins, Colorado, with a beautiful mountain view, having breakfast with my husband and son, and G and his lovely wife. And he's just a really super cool guy. He's funny, he is extremely knowledgeable, and he has the most amazing background in music. And I love music. For those of you who know me, you know that I'm all about music and dance. And G is actually the director and the curator and the podcast moderator for something called Colorado Music Experience, which is actually COLO, colomusic.org. And I'll put that in the notes so you can find that. But there it's like, what does it say? It's an evolving archive of podcasts and videos and galleries and artist profiles. And it's just a really super cool place to go to learn more about the people who made the music in Colorado and the people who love the music that's made in Colorado or that came to Colorado. So what I want to ask you, G, is you had, what, 26 plus years of writing about music for the Denver Post. You had over 3,000 interviews with people that nobody's ever heard of, right? Like Paul McCartney and Bono and Kurt Cobain and you know, all these no names. But first of all, you're from Colorado, right? Where did you grow up?
I am the Barry Bonds of natives. I have a lot of asterisks next to my statistics. Okay. I was actually born in Kansas City.
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
moved to Colorado when I was 2, so I have no real memories of anywhere but
Well,
Colorado.
that's all right. That's all right. That's what I say is you're from Colorado, because nobody remembers anything before 2 anyway.
My journalistic instincts, full disclosure. Okay.
Absolutely. And so when you grew up in Colorado, were you always a music guy? Was that something that you felt a strong tie to all the time? Or did you fall into this later on? Like, did you go to school to become a writer about music? Did you study music? Or did it just come together in a journalistic, moment?
It's a little of everything, Julie. I tell the story about being 6 years old, didn't know anything about music or anything else, right? But a young thing like you wouldn't remember the Ed Sullivan Show,
I remember the Ed Sullivan Show.
along with The Wonderful World of Disney and Bonanza, all these things.
Yep.
The Brown household, Sunday night was steak night. Okay, whatever mom could come up with and pass off the steak, and we'd sit around and watch the aforementioned shows. But the Ed Sullivan Show in particular, one Sunday evening, Little Richard came on, who I have always maintained. You could take all the shock rockers that have come down the pike since, from Alice Cooper to Marilyn Manson, all the provocateurs, and put them together, and they still wouldn't have the impact that Richard had in
Oh,
the late
because he
50s.
was such a departure from where things were.
That pompadour, the lipstick, I mean, black, gay, but ticking all these boxes in the baby
Right.
shower era, right? And my old man, for all of his faults, was very undemonstrative around us kids as far as language goes. We never heard a damn, much less an F bomb, right? And that
Uh-huh.
came from mom. I'm sure he was a man's man around that. Anyway, Little Richard comes on and sings Lucille, one of his great all-time squealers, right? Pounding the piano. And the old man set down his TV tray and said, "Get that screaming off the television." And I said, I didn't know anything, but all I knew at that moment was that whatever it was that got such a rise out of the old man bore further investigation, right? I had to get
Right.
that arrow in my quiver. I probably would have been an accountant if he'd have kept his mouth shut. And we went on and, we had our generational battles around music, but that's where it all started. A couple years later, the Kinks came on their car radio, "You Really Got Me," one of the great early rock singles. And I started pounding on the dash for some inexplicable reason. It just kind of took me over. And I'm sure mom thought that I'd been possessed by the devil at that point.
She's calling the exorcist to come and check you out, right?
Mom was fantastic. She was always nurturing uh, and set me on the path to do whatever I wanted to do. But as far as music being in my soul, I guess those are the two things I would point to. I am a trained journalist, if you will. I went to CU, University of Colorado, and got my journalism degree. But before that, I guess the path for music. At 15 years old, are you familiar with the movie Almost Famous, Julie?
Yeah. Yeah.
The Cameron Crowe story.
Hmm.
Really my story. What Cameron was doing out in San Diego, he was doing a couple years behind what I was doing in Colorado. I was 15 years old and rode my bike down to the local suburban newspaper with some horrible column I'd written about how you could actually wash your vinyl records in mild detergent and put them in right if they were dirty. I think it was just ridiculous.
Wow.
But the editor of the paper is still a friend. He was 22 years old. His name is Mark Wolf. He went on to write for the Rocky Mountain News and do great things as a journalist in his own right. But he was fresh out of college, and for him to have a 15-year-old kid sit at the foot of his desk and hear his stories about how the Yardbirds had played at his senior prom back in Illinois.
Wow. Right.
And he let me start writing reviews of albums. And back then, if you were published, you were a writer. That's what got you on the path.
And that actually took a lot of work to get published back then. You couldn't just put a blog out on the internet. You actually
No,
had to have an editor review your work and decide if it was worthy.
That's right. You had to
Right.
work to have a voice. I think that's one of the biggest problems facing us right now, is that everybody has a voice. You don't
Right.
have to work to attain it. But I parlayed that into some interviews. I'm sorry to be blathering about old tales here, but
No, I love it. I love it.
the thing is, I parlayed that into an interview with Burton Cummings of the Guess Who, which was one of my favorite bands at the time. I thought he had the best voice on the planet. I was a big fan. American Woman, No Time,
Yep.
Sugar Tonight, those songs. So I get an interview set up at the Denver Coliseum where they're playing.
Wait, how old were you at that time?
I was 15.
You were still 15 and you were getting an interview with the Guess Who.
I didn't know any better. So and neither did Burton, as it turns out. I showed up at the interview wearing my 8th grade graduation suit, brown wool with an orange shirt, matching tie, and it's July, okay?
Right, right.
And I'm here for the interview. And I'm sure Burton took the road manager aside and said, "What the heck's going on?"
Right, right. What am I doing talking to this kid?
Yeah. But he did the interview. He picked his toes the entire time, which was a big step because I had yet to go to journalism school. And that deification process that you have as a fan, that kind of went out the window.
Hmm.
I guess I won't ask him about the Middle East situation. We'll keep keep it to music here. Um,
Ah,
God bless Bert. And then I parlayed that into an interview with Joe Walsh, who you might know as the
wow.
guitarist with the Eagles. At the time, he had just left the James Gang and had formed a band called Barnstorm in Colorado. Came out, lived in the mountains for a year, woodshed, and emerged with this new band that was playing down in Denver at this little bar, cinder block place on Colfax, the main artery through town. So I go down at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, announce myself for the interview, and they wouldn't let me in. I was
Because you were too young.
obviously and woefully underage, right? And I didn't know what to do. I just said, well, if you see Mr. Walsh, if you'll tell him that I was here for my interview, and went back out into my Dodge Dart and sat there and kicked the floorboard and wondered what I'd do. And getting ready to take off, all of a sudden the door to the club opens up and the parking lot's totally empty except for my car, and it's Joe Walsh. And he peeks out and walks out, gets in the passenger side of my car and got in and proceeded to talk for about an hour and 20 minutes about leaving the James Gang, moving to
Oh,
Colorado.
that's incredible. Really, that's incredible.
It is incredible. The reason I tell those stories, Julie, is that I've always reflected on the fact that when you're that age, and if you're shut down, it devastates you, right? If you put yourself out there and it would just destroy you. I was
Right.
encouraged. Those two guys, I will always be indebted to. They talked to me, and
Right.
finished up with Joe, and I thought, man, I'm going to interview everybody, and I kind of did.
And you
As it turns
did, and you did. So how old were you when you went to work for the Denver Post?
I was still in school, still at the University of Colorado when I was writing for the Post, which I kind of exploited. My professors, if I wasn't in class, they thought, oh, he's at work,
Yeah.
for the paper of record here in Colorado, and
Right, right.
probably out doing the things the college kids do.
He's a big wig, and he's in our class. And
Yeah.
then you went on to write some books. Okay, so I think you've written 5 or 6 books, and I wrote down the ones here: Red Rocks, the concert years,
Mhm.
Colorado's Rock Chronicles, Telluride Bluegrass Festival, the first 40 years. And then there's these books that are like really heavy and thick and cool called On Record 1978 and On Record 1984. And I think you have another one that is out now or coming out shortly.
Yeah, Julie, I got to put you on the payroll.
Well, I love this one because it's 1984. I graduated from high school in 1985. And the very first artist in here is Prince. And he's in my heart forever. So I love that you chose Prince to be the first person in that book. And
Well,
I don't know what you used to pick him, but whatever it was right.
I
Because
chose
he was
him.
an absolute musical genius. I think untouchable. And
He chose the book. I mean, I was no doubt who was going to go first in
that's
19.
great. That is
Sort
great.
of struggling here, but I just feel like you're a completist, Julie, and this just showed up. It's on its way from the printer, but this is
Ah,
the next one, the new one.
1991. Perfect.
So you get you can collect the entire set, swap them with your friends.
Okay. So if somebody's interested in getting any of those books, can they get all of them on Amazon, or is there another place to get, or do they go through Colorado Music Experience to get those books?
Go to the website, and that will link to Amazon. But
Okay.
for our national distribution, that's the model right
So were you the one who came up with Colorado Music Experience, or was it already in place and then you took over as curator and director?
now. I was the founding director of the Colorado Music Hall of Fame.
Okay.
It's about a decade ago. And
Where is that housed?
I don't know right now.
Okay.
It's I put my heart and soul into that. It was a great opportunity, but founded it as a nonprofit, and the board and the chairman were not in sync. I'm not even sure the word nonprofit was in their vocabulary.
Ah,
they, I just it just wasn't going to work the way that with their egos and agendas, as opposed to the mission of honoring people,
Right.
history,
Right.
not really what they cared about. So I didn't do it out of spite or competition, but I formed Colorado Music Experience to run a nonprofit with integrity. So it's been about 2 years now, and you've seen what we have up there. I'm fiercely proud of it. It's a great repository.
It's really pretty incredible. And when I first went onto that site, I thought, wow, okay, there's a lot of people that have some really cool stories that are tied to Colorado in some way. And I've listened to some of the podcasts, and uh, Kevin Fitzgerald, I think it was,
Yeah, that's a good one.
totally cool story. So whoever's watching this, you got to go watch or check out the podcast, and that's a good one. And think I also listened to Tony Spicola, so
Uh-huh.
that was good. So
Funny.
okay, before we go, we have like 4 to 5 minutes left of this conversation.
I already blew all that time. Sorry, Julie.
No, that's
Something
these are
important.
great stories. I appreciate it. And because I think that today's world is so vastly different than anything that we've ever had before. I mean, I just saw a meme on Facebook that said, okay, can we all agree on one thing? The people who were asked 5 years ago, where do you see your life in 5 years in a job interview, got it completely wrong. Nobody could see this coming, right? So I've heard conversations from people about how obviously this whole pandemic has taught us that we don't need all the entertainment industry. We don't need art and culture and movies and TV and concerts and all this. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what are you all doing? You're watching Netflix and TV and trying to find movies, and now you're tired of the fact that there's no new music being produced. And like, that's our lives. That's what we go to fill up our souls, is music and art. And so I'm just wondering what your take on that is, because I think it's what keeps us company, especially in times of all this loneliness and separatism. So what are your thoughts on that?
The people that don't have music in their lives, I don't know what they got. It's incomprehensible to me. I am just a lucky, grateful boy. I got to meet and speak with amazing people, and the book series that you just so kindly promoted is really my way of giving back. We're publishing these books through Colorado Music Experience, the nonprofit. It's not about the traditional publishing model. This is culture and education to let people tap into heroes from the past.
And anybody who purchases these books, then the profits go back into the Colorado Music Experience to continue with that repository, that
Uh,
online archive.
book series. I'd like to, we've got the resources to do a whole series of volumes from 78 to 98. So here's
Right.
hope. But to see the people's response to it is just the most gratifying thing in my professional life. That it triggers memories. Music is memories, right? You hear a
Right.
song, where you were, it's what you were doing.
And it only takes a couple of notes, like that old show, Name That Tune. I can name that tune in 5 notes or whatever. I mean, really, it's instantaneous when you hear a note or a chord, that it takes you back to that time.
And I have to parse the difference between music and the music business, right? In the music business, uh, throughout my career, I was inspired by the memoirs of a man named Danny Goldberg, who was the president of a major record label, but he managed Stevie Nicks and Nirvana and other artists. He started out as a writer, another ink-stained wretch, you know. And he said that back in the day, it was so factionalized in terms of mainstream radio was playing only the music that they thought the most people wanted to hear, and the rock critics were writing about the things that they thought people should be listening to, what was cool, and
Right.
everyone had their little fiefdom, and these books just strip that away. They're comprehensive, and that everything's in there.
Right. Right.
genre, from jazz and country to rock and pop, and uh, every iteration, and to see people's reaction, just to see the. I'm proud that it's not first person bloviating or essays on what it all meant. That's the band's talking
It's
about
right.
what.
It's like taking a little picture of that band or that artist and just paying homage to it. You know, I was just saying that you mattered. You mattered to all of us who listened, who heard, and who were inspired by that music. So there are artists that I didn't know in the books. You know, I'm like, wow, I've never heard of that person, but it was interesting information to learn. And so I appreciate the fact that it's so all encompassing. So we're just about out of time here. It always goes by so quickly, but I do want to ask you if you had to listen to the same type of music for an indefinite period of time and you were just trapped, right? Like they always say, if you got trapped on a desert island, who would you be trapped with? Well, I mean, if it was just one type of music, what would it be?
That's that's a hard one, Julie. I made a career out of covering it all.
Right, right.
Only two kinds of music, good and bad. I believe that. But you got to go back to your formative years. 60s pop.
60s pop. I'm having a little bit of
You know,
connectivity
I
issue.
like electric guitars. Who
Ah,
doesn't play an electric guitar? I would say that yeah, guitar pop. Creedence Clearwater Revival. How's
a good choice. Good choice. All right. So 60s pop. Very good. And so I just want to thank you for being part of it. We had a little bit of connection problem there for a little bit of this conversation. So I hope that it is okay in the recording. But we'll
that?
just let it be whatever it is. And I thank you for your time and just for being who you are and bringing all this information forward to people so they have access to it. And you have certainly created a legacy for many future generations to have access to that. So thank you very much for
Thank you.
everything that you do.
Keep spreading the word. Thank you.